everyone, and welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, just welcome to the channel. Today we are going to go ahead and be talking about fish tanks, which is one of my other passions in life. My name is Anne, and I am a veterinary student as well as an animal lover and enthusiast. Today we are going to go ahead and be talking about fish tanks and some products that I consider essential if you have a freshwater fish tank. Okay, so the first product that I consider absolutely essential when keeping any kind of fish tank, whether it be freshwater or saltwater, would be a good water conditioner. Your water straight out from your tap is not safe for fish because it has chlorine in it, and there's a couple things that you can do to make that water safe. The first thing that you could do is you could go ahead and prepare some jugs of water and leave them out for about 24 hours. This will allow the chlorine to evaporate and therefore make the water safe for your fish. But what I recommend, and is easier, is just having a good quality water conditioner. I use Seachem Prime. I'm not sponsored by this product, I just really like it. I've used it for many years now, and I find that it keeps my fish happy, healthy, and very safe, no matter how many times that I use it. My tip, or one thing to look out for, is I've seen sometimes that users of water conditioner you dose them normally with the cap, so there'll be rings either inside of the cap that tell you how much to use. What I have found is sometimes fish keepers, once they have dosed their tank, they will go ahead and clean the cap off in the water and then go ahead and screw it back on the bottle. While this can technically be okay, I do recommend against it because every time you screw that cap back on, there is a chance that some water could drip into the bottle and therefore make the product more dilute and therefore not work as well, especially when you get to the end. So I don't recommend doing this. Dose it correctly with the rings in the cap, or however the product tells you how to dose it, and then go ahead and screw that back on, but do not introduce any sort of water because you will dilute the product. Additionally, these products last a really long time, but I always find that once I start nearing the end of a bottle, sometimes it is best to just go ahead and replace it. As things sit, they sometimes tend to not be as effective, and with something like water conditioner, you really don't want to test that amount if it's going to be effective or not. For me, my first ever fish tank, I used a different water conditioner, but I used it near the end and I think it had gotten a little bit dilute, and I had started seeing the effects of the chlorine toxicity, which as a new-time fish keeper is very shocking and very alarming. So I just find it best when your water conditioner gets low, go ahead and replace it. Okay, so the second product that I really recommend is beneficial for if you have a planted tank. I recommend almost all freshwater tanks being planted in some way, whether that be below the water or above the rim. If you are having plants and your plants seem to be struggling a little bit, whether they have yellowing leaves, brown speckling spots, or don't seem to be growing as well, you definitely should look into getting some fertilizers. I use Flourish Potassium and Flourish Phosphorus, and ever since I've introduced these into my water change and tank schedules, my plants have been doing so much better. I find that they really help make the plants grow stronger, look healthier, and are overall better for your fish. If you are somebody who wants to get started with a planted tank, I recommend looking into beginner-friendly plant species. There are a lot of plant species that don't require complex setups, and these plants can be very, very beneficial for your setups. They not only remove harmful nitrates from the water column, they help maintain the water quality overall, and they help give your fish environments with which they can swim in, hide in, and avoid other fish if they don't want to interact with them. Alright, so let's talk about tip number 3, which is overall nutrition. Finding good nutrition for your fish can sometimes seem impossible due to the amount of products out there, but I want to give you some tips for things that I look for when picking out my new fish food. For starters, as I said, there are so many different products out there with all different types of price points and ingredients lists and different things that they offer. First thing that I would look for is figuring out what type of fish tank you have. If you have a cichlid tank, I recommend looking into foods specifically designed for that species. Freshwater community tanks tend to be a little bit easier to find foods for, as there tends to be a lot more options. One thing I want to advise you to look out for is don't just buy a fish food because it has your fish on the package. Sometimes with marketing, they'll throw a bunch of fish on the package and they aren't necessarily good fish for that type of food, like that diet necessarily isn't good for them. For me, when I look for fish food, the number one thing that I look for is the ingredient list. I want to see, first and foremost, the protein that's in it, and I like to keep things as simple as possible. So if I want to look for example, for this type of fish food, it's just krill flakes. So when I look on the ingredients list, the number one thing I want to see is krill on it. This one has krill meal as the first ingredient. Probably my favorite brand of food that I often will purchase and will buy is New Life Spectrum. I find that I really like their various types of products, and my fish tend to like them as well, so they're very palatable. You can go ahead and pick whatever products that you like, but once again, I just recommend check the ingredients list, make sure the things on there seem to be highly nutritious, digestible, and of course that your fish will actually want to eat them. If you tend to see that you're feeding your fish and they're not really going after the food, or they're leaving a lot of it behind, you might want to consider switching to a different kind of fish food, because leaving all that fish waste, like the fish food waste behind, can damage your water quality. I also recommend having good variety of foods. A lot of times people just buy one type of big can of flakes and call it good, which isn't necessarily wrong, but just as with us humans and our dogs and our cats, we do want to try to give them a little bit of variety if we can. So for me, I try to have a couple different brands and a couple different types so that I can switch off which food I'm feeding them, as I find that it helps keep them engaged with their food, and I'm ensuring that they're getting all of their essential vitamins and minerals. So for here, I have New Life Spectrum, I have Extreme Aquatic Foods, and I have Bug Bites. So I have a good variety, and I have different textures as well. I know a lot of talk a long time ago was, don't ever give your fish flakes because they'll swallow air and it'll cause bloat and all these other issues. I've never found that to be the case with my fish. Once again, I try to vary things up as much as possible, but I've never really found that I give them flakes and they end up having digestive problems. So I at least do include a krill flake within my mixture of different foods, but if that's something that does make you nervous, you can go ahead and ditch the flakes entirely. There are different types of pellets in varying sizes and other different formulas that you can try. One last thing when it comes to nutrition, I try to stay away from the gimmicks that I see. For me, like I said, I focus on that ingredient list to see what is in the food, but a lot of times the fish foods will say like, oh, it boosts color, it boosts this or that or whatever because it has this ingredient in it. While that can be true, I can't speak to whether or not those products actually do that. I do have some things that I do have that include like color or whatever. My big thing is always just making sure that I'm checking that ingredient label and just trying to find things that have, centered amounts of ingredients and good ingredients, high quality ingredients, because even animals like fish, like they do require good nutrition. When I've talked to people in the past and their fish end up getting sick, the first question that I will ask is, well, what are you feeding them? Because good nutrition helps have good health, and then good health is a good, nice, long life. So stay away from the gimmicks if you can. And if you get something that does help make them extra colorful and it works out great for you and your fish, then that's awesome. But I wouldn't just simply pick a product or pay more for a product because it necessarily says that. I would go off of finding things that you and your fish really like, and then if they happen to have added benefits, then I say go for it. Alright, so the fourth product that I consider absolutely essential for freshwater tanks would be the inclusion of a test kit. Test kits are absolutely essential because they give you a really good baseline to see how your fish tank is doing. Lets you know things like ammonia, nitrate, and nitrate, as well as the pH. These things are really important to know because they can give you a heads up if something might be going wrong in your fish tank and potentially how to fix it. They're absolutely essential if you are new to keeping fish tanks, as you have to do something which we in the hobby called cycling. If you just go ahead and get a box and some water and throw some fish in there, your fish probably aren't going to do so well because they don't have an establishment of beneficial bacteria. Without this, when the fish produce waste, there's no bacteria to break the ammonia down to nitrate and nitrate into nitrate, which we remove in water changes. The ability to be able to tell where your fish tank is at is what makes these kits so essential. For me, since I've had my fish tank running for a long time now, I tend to do checks like these periodically. I don't necessarily do them every single time I do a water change. But if you're new to the hobby, I really recommend testing your water every time that you're going to go ahead and do a water change, or at least weekly if you can. This will go ahead and help just to make sure that you know where your fish tank is at. And if for whatever reason you are having a die-off in your tank, this could give you a reason as to why that might be happening. You maybe had an ammonia spike. Maybe your nitrates are too high. Maybe it's time for a water change. Doing a simple test like this is a great way to find out where your system is at. Okay, so the last product that I want to go ahead and talk about is something to add to your fish's medical kit. The one thing that I really recommend just having on hand are two types of salt. You have your regular aquarium salt and 100% natural Epsom salt. These salts are used for various different purposes, and I will try to remember to put on screen the different dosing if you wish to do a salt bath or salt dip for your fish. But I recommend at least having these on hand, so if your fish for or whatever reason are having some sort of medical issue, you can at least work on getting them some help or relief for whatever issue they have. There are lots of also different products out there to also include in your medical kit, with ICX being another one that I don't have on hand right now, but I do recommend at least having, like I said, in some sort of little fish first aid kit, if you will. These salts are incredibly handy. I've used them hundreds of times for different things, and they're great to have just in a pinch. One thing to note about aquarium salts, sometimes people will just add this to their aquariums after they do a water change. You can go ahead and do that. One thing that I will recommend against is if you do have invertebrates like your shrimp and snails, the addition of this salt can be deadly or detrimental to them, along with certain kinds of scaleless fish. So just make sure whatever you're putting into your aquarium, make sure you've done your research about it so that you don't end up injuring or harming any of your aquatic life. But these two things are incredibly important to have on hand. Aquarium salt you can just go ahead and buy at any local pet store. Your local fish store should definitely have this product. Epsom salt you can get at most pharmacies. The most important thing is you want to make sure it is 100% natural. You don't want any perfumes, dyes, anything like that. So just make sure you're getting something that's 100% natural for that. My last tip for if you're going to go ahead and do a dip or a bath with this for your fish in a gallon of water, you want to make sure that you go ahead and dissolve the salt fully before you go ahead and put your fish into the dip or the bath. We'll probably end up doing a whole what should be in your fish medical kit because I find it super interesting and super good to know, so I'll probably make a separate video on that, but I at least want to throw these two in there because I just simply store them below my fish cabinet, so if for whatever reason I need them, I can go ahead and pull them out. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's video. I hope you learned a little something new about the products that I use for my freshwater tanks and why I use them and what I look for when buying new products. With that said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Okay, one last chance. Intro, outro, looking at the video, is it clear? Then we will shoot the next section. Today we are going to go ahead and be talking about fish tanks, which is one of my other passions in life. Whether it be reptiles or fish, this is bad, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. Let's make sure that it looks not blurry. That's the whole point of this. It wasn't a screw up. It wasn't a screw up. It wasn't a screw up. Alright, let's see. Let's see if this will work. Is this too far away? I don't know. I would like to sit like this and talk. I hate that it's up, but I can't like get it any lower. And I don't know how to take that thing off the stand, so I don't know. But maybe looking up isn't a bad thing, at least for this one video. I don't know. I don't know, we'll see. The water, so they keep your water a lot cleaner, and they can be very enriching for your fish as well. Something that I found that might help is the inclusion of it's just not gonna go my way today, is it? It's just not. It's just not. It's just not.